So this is going to be a pretty short video, hopefully, just about a topic that I had thought about last year. I read this book, Our Unitarian Heritage. I forget who it was by. It was by this Unitarian minister. It was not a good read. I didn't really enjoy it, but it told me some things. So I was wondering if you always hear about the Unitarians and their nonsense nowadays, and I wanted to know, like, oh, well, did they ever believe in anything at all? Like, did they have any cool things they did? The answer is no, they didn't. They don't. But something I've seen a while, I hear about all the time, is the relationship between the Puritans, the old-timey traditionalists that we all know and love, and how they became Unitarians. It's either that or the Puritans split off and now the Unitarians are the successors, or how the logical consequences of Puritanism is Unitarianism or whatever, and those are all bad takes. And I just wanted to lay out like a very brief, basic run-through of the Unitarian crisis and what actually ended up happening. And the basic gist is that Unitarianism has been around for a while. It originated in, I think there was this one guy, he traveled a lot of places, but the important thing is that Unitarianism ended up in Transylvania and Poland, and it got expelled from Poland and went to the Netherlands, and then from the Netherlands to England, and from England to America, where it took hold in Congregationalist New England. And they and it's Congregationalism. You can't do much to fight heresy in Congregational polity, which is why I don't believe in it and why I'm not a Congregationalist. And what they would end up doing is the fervor in Congregationalism, the Puritanism, had been fading for a while, and there were many people who just didn't really see the benefits of it anymore. But since Congregationalism was the state church in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, it was the churches were supported by the state, and therefore these people who still weren't that interested in actual Puritanism became very, very involved in the governance of the church, even though they didn't really care about it, and they became very attached to Unitarianism. And that's not to say they were like atheists or deists or whatever. Like John Adams was a Unitarian, but that kind of appealed to the more lax sections of Congregationalist society, and it became a problem because what would happen is that the congregation calls upon a minister, but if the state is Congregationalist, that means that pretty much everyone gets to select the minister, and you end up having people who didn't go to church or didn't really care voting for Unitarian ministers to come in, and the actual Puritan Congregationalists would have to deal with the problems, and it became a huge issue. There were lawsuits about it, and the Unitarians would always win, and part of that was because Unitarians were often the people involved in Massachusetts society. They were, more involved in government. I think the statistic was like 75%, I think, of all Massachusettsans were Trinitarian Congregationalists, and the remaining 25 were Unitarians. But Unitarians had overwhelming control of the Massachusetts government, and the Congregationalists were like, we're going to fight back, and tried to, use their power as the majority to win back control. But that plan didn't really work because people care about other things. This wasn't the only thing in Massachusetts in the 1800s, but at this point, that people really cared about, and it just ended up causing this huge controversy. And eventually, both the Unitarians and the Trinitarians got together. Well, not really got together, but they both decided it would be in their best interest if the state just didn't control. Well, if the state was no longer linked with the church. And Massachusetts and by the 1830s, Massachusetts had stopped the Congregationalist, stopped physically supporting the Congregationalist church and having it linked to the government. And at that point, they all just kind of went their separate ways. And both the Unitarians and the Trinitarians would eventually merge back together into their both separate groups. So, the point really is that there was never like a schism in the Congregationalist church. No side really broke off from each other. It just kind of dissolved. There wasn't really any connection between the Congregationalist churches and each other besides being the established religion of the state or states. And once that dissolved, they just kind of went all their separate ways and reformed their own connections. And the Unitarians formed their own association, which merged with the Universalists in the 1960s and made the Unitarian Universalists, who are up to their nonsense nowadays. And the Congregationalists formed their own group during the Civil War, who, for a while, were thinking about merging with the Presbyterians, but that didn't end up happening, and who knows why. And then they merged with some other people into another group, the Congregationalist Christian Council, I think, and then they merged with another group into the UCC in the 50s. The UCC we all know and love, which some say is as bad as the Unitarian Universalists, but that's just wrong. You laugh at them because they're stupid. We love our Congregationalists. And yeah, so that's just a short. It ended up being like 8 minutes, which is longer than I thought I would be able to talk about this. With, I haven't said all that much, but hopefully in the future I'll make more videos for this channel, but it's a bit hard because well, I usually don't record in my room, but I didn't really feel like leaving. And with school and all that, it's a bit hard, but hopefully there'll be more in the future. So see you in 6 to 10 business months.